I considered myself for so long a lifelong learner, which I still am, but there's a point in entrepreneurship where you have to stop investing in education and actually claim yourself as an expert of where you're at. There's still more to learn, but you just have to dive in and offer what you have to offer at some point. And that's such a pivotal moment to realize that, yes, there is so much more to learn, but I've come this far. I have this wisdom. I want to share it with others.
Welcome to the House of JerMar podcast, where wellness starts within. The House of JerMar is a lifestyle brand, empowering women to live all in through interior design and personal wellness. We are a destination for women ready to reimagine what is possible in their homes and lives, and then create it. We are honored to have you join us on our mission to empower 1 million women to live all in. I am your host, Jean Collins, and I invite you to become inspired by this week's guest. Welcome to the House of JerMar podcast, where wellness starts within. I'm your host, and today's guest is Catherine Harris. She is so interesting to me because she touches on both of my passions, interior design and art, and personal wellness, growth, kind of figuring out your best life. So we're going to talk today with Catherine. She's going to share her journey. She's actually an art consultant, which is something that I use in my interior design business, which I love, but she also is a life coach. So there is so much for us to talk about, and she is so inspiring. So Catherine, welcome to the House of JerMar podcast.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
I'm so glad to have you. And we are recording on a Monday, which is for me such a great way to start my Monday because you have really cool energy and you touch on two of my passions, being art and personal wellness and growth and working on yourself. So you have managed to combine all of the things I love into a career, which is so exciting. So let's start off by talking about your journey, because I am mentioning that you were an art consultant and I want to talk about what that is, but that's not how you started out. So I would love for you to share your journey to everybody, especially because I think it's important for people to understand that they see us on these shows and they see where we are and we seem like, we got it all going on and we got it all together and figured out. But the reality is we don't start that way. And there's a process for us to get there. And I would love for you to share what that journey was like.
Absolutely. And yes, it has been a process. I mean, my resume is, if you put it all together, probably miles long. I've tried a little bit of everything along the way. But as always, when I look back, the pieces make perfect sense. It lined up as exactly what it needed to be what I was creating and dreaming of. And here we are. So I am an art consultant. I am also a clarity and confidence coach. And I typically keep the two separate, but they often overlap. And becoming an art consultant was largely, I have a master's degree from Sotheby's auction house in New York and a bachelor's degree from Sonoma State University in art history. And I didn't intend to study art when I went into college. I actually intended to study biology, and then took art history as an elective and realized I had a visual memory and a passion for what I was learning. And the teacher pulled me aside one day and she was like, you're really good at this and you seem to enjoy it. I wanted to let you know that there is a program that you can get almost all the credits towards an art history degree with 1 year in Italy. And I was like, where do I register?
Yes.
Yeah, so that is how I started down this path. I mean, I always had an interest in art, but never saw it as a career until that moment of, I can get a degree in this, and that means I can actually potentially make money using that degree in the future. And one thing led to another, and I ended up a lot of detours, but ended up working for an art consultant in my hometown of Sacramento, California. And after coming home from New York, and loved it. Just absolutely love helping people find something that's meaningful to them and a representation of that in their aesthetic space. And largely was working on hospitals at the time, which is very lucrative, but wasn't my passion. And so now I own my own company, primarily working with women as clients and women as artists and connecting the two together.
Which is so interesting. So, talk, if you wouldn't mind, a little bit, sharing a little bit about your journey about how you went from working for someone else to becoming an entrepreneur, because
Whew.
that also was not a, yeah, sign me up. That wasn't like going to Italy for a year. That wasn't a sign me up. I can't wait to do that. So,
Right. No,
share with everybody that journey to becoming an entrepreneur.
absolutely. It was not a plan. And I mean, I am the queen of vision boards and planning and intention. And I also am wide open to serendipity and synchronicities. And this was one of those where I had not ever thought of myself as an entrepreneur and realized that my vision was different from the woman who owned the company I was working for as an art consultant. And so I was like, okay, let's move on. I was planning on moving to a job about 2 hours away, working for an art gallery, and just went out to drinks with a coworker and a client one night and was sharing that I was probably on a different path here soon. And one of them pulled me aside afterwards and was like, your whole network is in this town. Your family is in this town. Everything you've created is in this town. Why don't you just start a business for yourself? Like, do what you're doing, but do it the way you want to do it and the way you love. And I was like, "That sounds amazing. Why don't I just win the lottery while I'm at it?" Like, who does that? And come to find out, going to lunch with him the next day, he's a serial investor, and that's what he does, is find people who are passionate about what they can do and helps them get that jump start to be able to do it as a career, and had multiple other small businesses that he had funded the startup of, and he was willing to invest in me. And that's where it began, and it turned out the other coworker that we had been out to drinks with, I invited her to come along for the ride, and we started a company that is actually still going. I have since sold my portion of it because it was largely focused on healthcare, and as I said, that wasn't my passion. But
Right.
it got me started down the path of entrepreneurship, and I am forever grateful for that because it is a journey, it is a ride, it is crazy.
Okay, well, and you're so lucky because that is part of the challenge that people have when becoming entrepreneurs is how do you bankroll that? And so it's very scary. I would imagine. I haven't done it, but I find it terrifying the thought of even having to go out and get VC money and get someone to back your idea. And then I am told the number of no's that you get and the rejection is just so hard on your soul and your spirit. And so the fact that the universe brought this to you before you even had to go through that process is what a gift.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Such a gift. And it's funny, I had been to my first psychic ever about 2 years before that. And the things she said made absolutely no sense at the time. But looking back, I was like, oh, she was telling me about this guy. Like, this is what's happening. So it was perfectly timed. And, I feel like it was exactly what I needed to jumpstart. And what happened is jumping into entrepreneurship, I believe dating, traveling, and entrepreneurship are the three ways that we test and find out who we truly are in this world and what we're meant to show up as in this body. And diving into entrepreneurship was exhilarating and so testing, just to be like, okay, what is my personal brand? Who am I trying to be in this world and provide value that actually makes money? And through that process, I ended up joining a women's business owners group and retreats and all the things. And that's where the path to personal development really took off. So, entrepreneurship and personal development to me are hand in hand. You can't have one without the other.
You cannot. Well, and I love the fact that you mentioned a group because I do feel like one of the challenges as entrepreneurs is it is very lonely. And I always encourage entrepreneurs to find friends, find people who can relate to your journey as an entrepreneur because a lot of times we have friends and relationships from our past lives. And those don't always carry over when we become an entrepreneur. And I don't know if you had the same experience, but not all those friends came along because the life as an entrepreneur is very different and you're growing and you're changing and they can't always relate. Did you have to go through that same experience where you almost had to transition to a new type of friend group?
Absolutely. I mean, I still maintain a lot of the friends that kept me going in my single 20s and life of the party and just having fun. But it's funny how some of them that weren't close then, but get the entrepreneurial path, we've gotten closer through this journey. And some of them that absolutely don't get it, that's just not what we talk about when we get together, Like it
Yeah.
just, and I have to say, even in my closest relationships with family, it definitely changes when you're an entrepreneur. Like the ones who get it, like you can go deep. I mean, Thanksgiving, Christmas, like those conversations all of a sudden are so meaningful to you as an entrepreneur and supporting each other that other people just can't join the conversation if they're not going through the trials and tribulations of what that involves.
Right. Yeah. The carrying the weight. It's not just the tasks of it, it's the weight of all of it and the experience. And I also find, and you might have this too, because you're similar to me in this sense, we're interested in so many things as an entrepreneur. And so everything becomes a new business idea.
Absolutely.
Everything becomes a new business idea. And anyone who's interested in personal growth and coaching is like, everything is another business opportunity and another thing to learn and get educated on. And I think people that don't necessarily have that same type of brain struggle with the way that we think.
Absolutely. And I considered myself for so long a lifelong learner, which I still am. But there's a
Yes.
point in entrepreneurship where you have to stop investing in the education and actually claim yourself as an expert of where you're at. There's still more to learn, but you just have to dive in and offer what you have to offer at some point. And that's such a pivotal moment to realize that, yes, there is so much more to learn, but I've come this far. I have this wisdom. I want to share it with others. And that's actually how I transitioned from the art world to the coaching world was when I sold my portion of that first business and sold my house at the time. I had this little nest egg of financial ability and opened my first art gallery. And that was an opportunity to bring people into a curated space that was mine and create events and create happenings. And also realizing that artists needed so much more than an opportunity to put their art on the wall. They really were coming to me for questions about their pricing and their promotion and their business model. And so I really dove into coaching artists, not around what they were creating, but how they were getting it out there and how they were making money doing what they love. And it came down to really being conversations about self-worth and confidence and clarity of what they wanted. And I mean, pricing was all about confidence and self-worth, and promotion was all about your personal brand and who you want to show up as and who that means you want to connect with that can support your journey. And so out of that, becoming a coach for artists, when I closed my art gallery, continued coaching. I was so passionate about those conversations that I felt were so meaningful that now it's not only for artists, it's for women that want that clarity and confidence, whether it's in their love life or publishing a book or eliminating toxic relationships or diving into the career of their dreams. It still comes down to self-worth, clarity, confidence, and self-love.
100%. And what's so amazing is as you're talking about it, I'm listening to you talk about how you're helping artists and, I'm listening to you explain this journey. I'm thinking as you're speaking, that's not just artists, that's everybody trying to understand your brand, your value, your purpose, your clarity, like who you are, what you stand for in this world, and your value with that, and also your uniqueness. So as you're saying that, I'm thinking to myself, well, that's more than just artists. And then you start to expand on what you're doing now. And I'm like, what? It's such a natural progression and such a natural fallout of taking something that is a unique skill and a gift that you have, and then seeing how you can expand your net beyond artists and just broaden that. Was that like an aha moment one day, or did it unfold over time?
It's kind of unfolded over time. One of my favorite events that I hosted in the gallery was a vision board party. And that invited all women that were not necessarily artists. And that was the first conversation of, okay, what do you visualize? What do you want? What are the obstacles standing between that vision and where you are now? And ever since, and I will, share also that So when I sold my house and had that money from selling my first business, my portion of it, I didn't know what I wanted to do in the world. I had zero. And so what I did is created a vision board. And I had done them multiple times since I was a kid, but this particular one, I was just pulling out images from magazines and not really with an intention because I had no idea. I just needed inspiration. And when I put it all together and looked at it, it was very clear that what my heart was asking for was a brick and mortar space. I didn't know if it was a bakery or a bookstore or what, but it was a brick and mortar space where I could curate an ambiance that felt like a representation of me and inviting the people that I wanted to connect with. And it was literally 4 months from creating that vision board that I did all the work to develop an LLC, connect with developers, find a retail space available, create my business as a gallery director in complete inspiration from that vision board. And so doing that vision board party then in that gallery and sharing that with women who weren't necessarily artists just led me to realize that, yeah, I had some wisdom and experience that was valuable and inspiring to others. And so when I closed my gallery and then COVID hit, I'm working from home and it was still easy to connect with women about those conversations. So I dove deep into my coaching career and not necessarily as artists, but all women looking to create their dreams.
Which there are a lot of us.
Yes.
Yes, there are a lot of us. Ugh, you have such incredible energy. So talk to us about your coaching business and what have you done? What do you do? And what is on the horizon?
Oh, great question. So, this is my primary focus right now because I'm just so excited. Every year I do a vision board party. I've done them in person, I do them online, and I even do, if people want to hire me, they've hired me for their staff or their clients. But my baby is my annual one that I do as a 10-day online challenge to really help women visualize. For this one, it'll be visualize your 2025. And each day for those 10 days, we focus on a different area of life. So it'll be wealth and prosperity one day, career and impact the next day, travel and, connection the next day, and relationships and love and romance the next day, going through all the, areas of your life over the 10 days. And in that, on the Lunar New Year, and I specifically schedule it around the Lunar New Year because I feel for me, energetically, that's when I really burst into new beginnings. It's not necessarily the calendar year. I'm still
Right.
easing out of winter, but the Lunar New Year, I'm ready to go. And so this is when I do my vision board party, and it'll start January 27th and go through February 5th with a actual vision board party on the evening of the Lunar New Year, which is Wednesday the 29th. And it's an opportunity for us to just get together and share what's true for us, reflect on where we've been for the past year and what we want to create in the future. And I've been doing this for so many years now. I mean, the first one in that gallery was, what is that, 8 years ago? No, this will be my seventh annual now. And so the testimonials of women that come back to me and they're like, I did that vision board with you 2 years ago. My career has taken off, year over year success. I found the love of my life, like all these stories that I'm like, this works. So yeah,
Powerful.
yeah, it'll be a free event. It'll be online. You can go to my website at coachcatherineharris.com/vision to register for your free spot. But I would love for as many as feel called to dive into this creation to join us. It's an open party for everyone.
That is so exciting. So you did one, I want to say it was in the early fall or late summer, and you did back burner to breakthrough. And I found out about it maybe the week before. And it was also a 10-day, you had meetings, a Zoom in the morning, and then you had a speaker midday, my time on the East Coast.
Yeah, you want-
And I was able to join for a very little bit for a few of them. I was blown away by how many people participated. Because as an entrepreneur, like you had so many participants. How is everybody finding you?
So it's a combination of a lot of things. And that's actually one of my smaller events. My vision board party is my biggest of the year. So I'm very excited to even grow that. But a lot of it is, the guest speakers that I bring on are phenomenal experts in their industry. And each day is tailored to the topic of that day, who I bring on to expand on the conversation in the second session that day. And so obviously, them sharing it with their community helps a lot, has introduced me to a lot of amazing women that I wouldn't have known without that. And just networking. I mean, I've always been in communities where women are looking to thrive and create, and they refer me to each other if they hear, a friend is diving into this career that's completely off the path of what they thought they were intending to do with their life, and they just want support and belief in this potential dream. I get referrals from people that are like, she's doing things. Can you support her? And it's just grown. Like I say, this will be my 7th annual vision board party. So every year it's a few more.
It is truly a testament to what you are
Thank
attracting in
you.
your life because it is not easy. It's like when you write a book, you put it out there and the people don't just come.
It's
They
true.
don't just
Yeah.
come. So the fact that you are attracting and networking and getting all of these people to come and to participate and really learn from each other, it also shows that there's a need that women have this desire to connect and learn and grow together, which is so special. And you're creating a way to do that. It's great.
Thank you. And the sense of community is something that I find so beautiful in these. Like, I get up at, for me, my time, the first session is 6 a.m. and I share, my thoughts on the topic of the day. And then I take my son to school. And then we gather to get together again at 10 a.m. my time, Pacific time, for the guest speaker. And then there's the Facebook community where people really dive in and share where they're at in the process, why they came to this particular gathering. Each group is different. And I find that there's always a common thread. Every event that I host throughout the year, that particular group of women that say yes to that particular event, there's always a common thread. And so for my most recent one, after the back burner to breakthrough, I did break your pattern because I find fall is a very good energy to really dive into our life lessons and analyze what gifts we have from that information. And so it was a 4-day intensive called Break Your Pattern. And I found that the women that said yes to that were not only strongly intuitive, but stepping into their power. They were in this transitional moment in their life where they were saying yes to this highest version of their potential for joy and their vision of the future and stepping into their power, saying no to these patterns that weren't serving them any longer. And I love with every event identifying what that common thread is, like who the women are that are saying yes to themselves and to their possibility. And so I'm really excited to see the women that are saying yes to this vision board party at the end of January, what that common thread is, like what this energy is for the new year.
That is cool. And I have to say, I just wrote a blog post recently about vision boards because I had been reluctant. I will be honest, I'd been reluctant about vision boards. And I think it really tapped into this like childhood belief that I was not a creative person. And vision boards meant cutting all these things out of magazines and making them look like this pretty collage. And to me, that was like a really scary elementary school exercise in arts and crafts. And I was going to fail. And so I've been anti vision boards for so long. And for about 6 months, you know how the universe works, right? And it's like for 6 months, I had met so many people who had talked about the power of their vision boards and had showed me their vision boards and showed me, like, you see this picture and you see how I'm focused on the front, but look at the thing in the back. Well, that thing in the back happened. Or this place that I had a picture of, guess what? I created an event and it turns out it's in the same town as that picture is. All these crazy stories. And I started doing a coaching program for my brand. And literally the guy starts with like, okay, you have to write a vision board. And I was like, oh my goodness, I can't escape this. Like this vision board thing is everywhere. The universe is screaming at me that you have to write a vision board. And so something made me go to Canva and I was like, oh my goodness, there are templates here. I don't have to go and collect magazines and cut all this out. I don't have to make it look pretty. Like it already is pretty in Canva. They've done all the work. I just have to go online. And it was like shopping for your Christmas list as a kid, writing it for Santa. I was like, this is amazing. I'm just pulling all these beautiful images of like dream places and dream things and dream experiences. And I write about this because I was like, it was so different from what I expected it to be like. It was so much fun. I did 4 of them over a weekend because I got so into it. I got so into it. I was like, oh my goodness, what was I so afraid of? This is actually so much fun. And then I had to go through the exercise of like, okay, how am I going to now get these out? How am I going to look at them every day? Am I going to print them? What am I going to do with them? And I have to tell you, it was like a total transformation. So I always kind of giggle to myself when someone like you talks about vision boards. I'm like, okay, I heard you, universe. I'm finally paying attention. And I'll be the first one to step up and say, like, they are really powerful. And it really, it's like you're giving yourself permission to dream big and not dream small. It's like dream big about what you might want. And so
Yeah.
that's really exciting that you're going to do that. That
Oh,
would be
I'm
really
so
fun.
glad you spoke into that because, yes, they are so empowering, but they are so fun. And I've had so many women over the years, especially when I owned the art gallery, that first one, they were like, oh, no, I'm not creative. Like, there's, no creative in here. And I was like, that is not like, yes, every one of us, whether we have a, womb space or not, like we have that creative center of our feminine being that is so, I mean, what we create in this world, whether it's arts and crafts or the art of our life, like that is in all of us. And yes, Canva is such a beautiful tool for, I mean, when you talk about writing your wish list for Santa, I think I have a 4-year-old son that the Amazon catalog just showed up and he's like circling everything in it. And yeah, Canva, it's just making, they all have all the photos already in there. So it's like making a catalog of everything that's possible in the entire world. And what do you want to choose? And getting to play with that. And it becomes fun. And the best part of it is like all the stories that you mentioned where how well it works. It really does work. I have women that are like, well, I just picked this, purse or shoes or whatever, 'cause that was pretty and it was in the catalog. And they look back a year from now, they're like, I own those. That was part of it. And they don't even realize. And I am a huge advocate of putting it where you do see it every day. I have had them in my bathroom on the wall next to where I brush my teeth. I've had them in the kitchen. I've had them over my office desk, like everywhere. But there's also the people that, tuck it away and are still amazed because I'll do like an integration call down the road and they're like pulling it out to just reflect on something they haven't looked at in a year and it still worked. Like they
And it's
still
still
called it in.
it is really unbelievable. I have to say I had so much fun with it. And the other thing I'll say about Canva that I thought was really cool, they have so many templates for vision boards and they all have, I felt, different emotional feelings to them. And so part of the journey was me picking the templates that tapped into the emotion of the
Mhm.
things I was trying to create. And I know that's potentially on purpose. But once you're aware of that, I was like, "Ooh, no, that's too like stark black and white. That's not emotional enough and soft enough for what I'm trying to attract. It's striking, but that's not the right thing for this subject." So it was very interesting as I started to feel the emotion of what I was creating and how those images together felt to me on this digital page. I was like, "Ooh, look at what that," just paying attention to that emotion. And I think that helps draw it in too.
Absolutely. And I think that's a testament to your genius also of interior design. I mean, as aesthetic focused women, I feel like that's just natural for us to bring meaning from whatever we're looking at or whatever we're creating. But it's fun to see too the ones that just flip through the magazines and have no idea what exactly they're putting together and they put it together and it does. It has an essence of their unique brand without them realizing what they were putting together or
Right.
why the things they were drawn to have those certain emotions. And when I look at them, I can feel the vibe of each woman in her creation, even when they
Yes.
weren't sure where they were headed with it.
Yes. That's so powerful. So Most of the thing, I don't know if this is true, but it seems like a lot of the things that you offer, you do them for free. Is that true?
So I do a lot of free events throughout the year, and then oftentimes those will be the starting nugget of inspiration for the paid programs that I am leading into. So, for example, like the vision board party is free 10 days, and I have women that come each year, and that's all they do is the free 10 days, and they love it and look forward to it. But then a lot of them will go from that, like, "Okay, I've created the vision. Now what? Like, how do I
Right.
make this
Yeah.
happen?" And if they want a champion and an ally in their corner, and they want a community of sisterhood and women that are cheering them on and recognizing what they're doing. I mean, like you said, with entrepreneurship, having a community of people that get the significance of what you're going through and what it takes. I like to curate a group of women in each of my paid groups. In addition, it's available during the 10 days. But if you want that longer for like monthly check ins or on a weekly program, all of my paid programs have that community as well. And the Facebook group, I mean, for better or worse, Facebook, I feel like there's an opportunity there that is just an easy way for people to connect and see each other so that when we're not on a group call or a one-on-one call with me, you can still be witnessed. Like today, this happened and I
Right.
want to
Yeah.
celebrate it or be heard if something's hard, like to move through that energy. So all of that is also included. So each of my free events typically leads into whether it's 6 weeks, 3 months, or the one I'm most excited about right now is my first 12-month. So for
Ooh.
2025, because so many women have done my paid programs and have, taken their life to the next level, but they really are dreaming really big now. And they feel like the support that they need around the big next level would really be something that they want to check in once a month throughout the year to make sure they're making their dreams come true. So I'm offering a program called Becoming that is a 12-month program to be held through all 4 seasons of creating that dream life. And actually, I wasn't even intending to share that. That is a sneak peek of what's to come.
Ooh, but that's so powerful. And so that's so interesting because it was one of my questions to you about the bucket list for the future and how do you decide what else to offer and what's next?
Yeah, I feel like the creativity that I bring into this world is so much through my business and being creative with my business. And for a long time, every event that I hosted was purely, I mean, sometimes it was literally in 3 days I'd put it together because the muse was inspiring me to put this out in the world. I've gotten a little more clear and so a little more consistent that I know at Lunar New Year, this, vision board is always what's wanting to be birthed out of me. I know in the fall season, it's kind of that back to school learning life lessons energy that I do something around breaking patterns or a 30-day challenge or whatever that might be. And in spring, blossoming that energy of trusting yourself and moving forward. So I've realized the patterns of the energy. So that's why I'm now able to offer a 12-month program that encompasses all of those events, knowing exactly what they're going to be and when they're going to be, and allowing people to invest in a bundle
Right.
as opposed to when I just was inspired in the past and they dove in with
Yeah.
me.
Coming along for the quick ride.
Exactly. But it's so intuitive. I just, I love being in conversation with women and see where they're at, find out how I can help and move forward with that idea.
Which is really cool. How do you decide what you're going to learn next?
Oh my goodness, I am so heart guided. That is what I teach the women that choose to work with me is following your heart guidance, trusting your inner wisdom, and it surprises me all the time. I recently made a $10,000 investment that I did not have in mind before it came across my path, but I was such a heart full hell yes to what was being offered that I knew I wanted to learn the magic that this woman offered and that it was going to take my life and my business and everything connected to that to the next level. And I was all in, and it's been one of the best investments of my life, as is everything I do that's heart guided. So it's just a matter of leaning into, does it feel light and expansive or contracted and heavy. And I just decide from there on the spot.
So I just have a couple more questions for you because I've taken up so much of your time. So first is, how do people find you other than just networking? How are people finding you?
So I am on Instagram and also Facebook as Coach Catherine Harris. And my website, coachcatherineharris.com, has all the updates of what I'm up to and how you can play along.
I love that. Okay, let's talk about wellness for a minute. I find that most of the people who are coaches and in the personal growth, personal wellness space have pretty interesting wellness routines because we know there are so many things that we could be doing to take care of our mind, body, and spirit. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your wellness routine?
Yeah, sure. So I feel like creativity as an art consultant, as an artist coach, as a women's coach. Creativity is such a big factor in my life for the women I work with and for the work that I do. I am very creative about how I run my business. And the women that I coach are very creative with what they're putting out into the world, presenting their, gifts to the world. And I feel like creativity, through my experience and what I've witnessed, I believe that creativity is a thermometer for our wellness. And with that in mind, I am very intentional about allowing that playfulness and that creativity to come in my life. It makes it a lot easier with a 4-year-old son in my life that I can follow his lead a lot of the time and be playful and creative that way. But like I say, as an entrepreneur, as a wife, as a mother, as a daughter, all of those, it's, are we willing to be creative with it and to see possibility in something that isn't maybe the predictable path, isn't maybe the safest. When we play small, we don't realize what's possible for us. And when we get creative, all of a sudden worlds open up for us. And even when, looking at artists, when they're creative, even if it comes from a place of anger or rage, if they're moving that energy through them and in the act of creating, they're in flow. It's not getting stuck in their body, in their cells, in their organs, in their tissues, where I think that's largely a cause for disease is when that energy gets stuck. But when we're creative, we allow that energy to flow. And so that for me is the number one identifier of if my well-being and my inner wellness is been a priority or if I need to lean into creativity a bit more. But for me, it's all about a morning routine. That's usually the first section of any program that I offer for my paid clients is diving into their daily rituals that allow them to fill their cup first. And that's something I practice every morning to fill my cup and to allow myself to reconnect to my source energy so that I have that energy to be creative out in the world.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of the morning routine, and I find I get so cranky and actually like pissed when I don't have enough time in the morning for my usual morning routine when it gets like cut short. And I also find the older I get, the longer my morning routine is. And maybe that's just because I need more time to fill my cup. And I also don't want to do it as early as I used to do it. Like I used to get up at 5 o'clock to work out and go to work. And now I'm like, oh no, 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 no. I am just not a morning person anymore in my 50s. Those days are over. But every morning I really feel like I need that time to sit and journal and reflect in order to set myself up for the day. And I also find for myself as an entrepreneur, so many of my creative thoughts come from that morning time and the morning time that I'm giving myself to just, even if I just start free writing journaling, it's amazing how by the time I'm done, I have like these new ideas or have solved a business challenge or even just change my mindset around a business challenge just by free for writing it. Like the answers are within. I just have to get them to like bubble up to the surface.
Exactly, exactly. And I'm such a huge proponent of this. I'm actually publishing a daily planner that
Yes.
has daily journal prompts because I think that process of just free writing, like you said, is so powerful to identify what's weighing on us and to declutter that from our minds and move forward with that inner knowing that does have the answers.
That's true. When it's also interesting, I'll make one other comment about that. You talk about creativity, and I think so many times people associate creativity with, can you paint? Can you draw? And I'm like, I can't paint and I can't draw at all. However, I think creativity, when you expand your definition of creativity, even just journaling and writing taps into that creative side of our minds and our brains and our hearts just by writing or just meditating. The silence and the calm taps into that part of our brain. So creativity doesn't have to be, what can I go paint or what can I go draw?
Absolutely. I had a client the other day that mentioned that she realized that the creativity being a thermometer for her wellness, she identified it as, I haven't cooked a really exciting meal in a while. And that's
Yes.
her creativity being stifled. It can be, anything. Gardening is such a creative act. So yeah, everyone has their own flair, their own way of bringing it out. As long as it's in flow, then I feel like that's an identifier for wellness within.
Yes. Ooh, powerful. Love that. All right. So I ask all of my guests a question towards the end because I'm a huge proponent of books. I think books can change a life. It can make you think differently. So I ask everyone to make a recommendation to our listeners of a book that impacted you either personally, professionally, or something that you just think is really interesting and you think people should read. So what book would you like to recommend?
So it's very much connected to our entire conversation today is a book that when I started that first art consulting business, I had our office in an artist loft warehouse space. And I remember being on the garden roof up top reading this book, and it completely set me up for success in my business and as an entrepreneur going forward. And I actually have a copy here on my desk, but it's The Artist's Way.
Oh, yes.
And
Yes.
this goes directly to what we were just talking about. It's by Julia Cameron, and she recommends one of the basic tools of moving forward is morning pages. And morning pages are writing 3 completely uncensored, unfiltered, free write journal pages every morning to just do that, to declutter your mind and allow yourself to notice after doing it day after day after day, you'll start to see those patterns of what you're wishing for, but maybe haven't taken action yet, what you're complaining about, but maybe haven't taken action yet.
Yeah.
And you just start to recognize your way of being and identify what is the necessary ways to change if you want to create change in your life. And it's been hugely beneficial to my inner wellness. Just number one, that decluttering process, but also that self-awareness that it has provided.
Yeah, which is often the key because we think we don't know, but we actually do know. We're just not aware of what we know. So you have to bring it to the surface.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, Catherine, this has been such a great way to start my Monday. Thank you so much. You have such incredible energy. I am absolutely going to sign up for Vision Board 2025. I will spread the word about that. We will make sure this
Thank
podcast
you.
episode comes out before then so we can talk about it, share it on my Instagram community so we can get as many people to join as possible. I'm a firm believer now in vision boards, and I know your programs are so fantastic. So I would love to be able to share that with the broader audience. So thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. And also, if people want to tap into you about art consulting, really nothing is more fun than working with somebody who's really passionate about art and how art can change your life and how you feel in your home. So don't forget about Catherine for that too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day. We'll talk soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the House of JerMar podcast, where wellness starts within. We appreciate you being a part of our community and hope you felt inspired and motivated by our guest. If you enjoyed this episode, please write us a review and share it with friends. Building our reach on YouTube and Apple Podcasts will help us get closer to our mission to empower 1 million women to live all in. You can also follow us on Instagram at House of JerMar and sign up to be a part of our monthly inspiration newsletter through our website, houseofjermar.com. If you or someone you know would be a good guest on the show, please reach out to us at podcast@houseofjermar.com. This has been a House of JerMar production with your host, Jean Collins. Thank you for joining our house.